0300 hours, convoy hold valley east. Engines idle under blackout light, low and steady, blending with the hiss of open comms. Dust hangs thick enough to taste, carried by a cold pre-dawn wind. Visibility stays under 100 yards. The valley floor narrows between shadowed ridgelines, and every movement feels amplified inside the silence. Captain Dana Holt stands at the map board beside her lead vehicle, helmet clipped to her belt, flashlight lens taped to a narrow beam. Her convoy, 3 transports and a support MRAP, sits exposed in the bowl. Orders filter through delayed radio chatter from higher headquarters. Hundreds of miles away. They say withdrawal. She says nothing yet. Liability, by record, falls on her if the call goes wrong. Signal integrity drops by 20%. Brake lights glow faint red through the haze, ghosting against swirling dust. Holt marks positions on the paper map, hands steady, the tip of her pencil tracing the ridgeline she can barely see. The sound of idling engines becomes the pulse of the hold itself. Discipline against uncertainty. She listens for clarity in the static, but hears only the same clipped voice repeating a command that does not fit the terrain. Command channel clarity degrades again. The wind shifts. Dust drifts through the open driver window and settles on her notes. Holt glances once toward the darkness beyond the last truck. Somewhere out there, her perimeter confidence is slipping. She keys the mic but waits 1 beat longer than protocol allows. Fuel window tightens to 30 minutes. She lifts her head toward the ridge, silent, the weight of both silence and authority on her. The engines keep breathing, the comm line still open. Nothing moves. Then the signal wavers once more. Half a transmission, cut mid-word. Dust still hangs over the convoy road, engines idling under faint red light. The blackout posture holds. Static hums across the comm channel, every sound measured. Captain Dana Holt stays on link with higher command, the signal clean enough for now. This record draws from verified field reporting under U.S. authority, documenting each decision and delay. Signal frame locks for 3 seconds before resuming. A blinking cursor tracks across the map tablet as dust rises from distant rotor wash. Lights dim again to preserve blackout discipline. The heartbeat-like bass in her headset merges with a low comms click, steady and precise, marking the point between contact and debrief. These operations are recorded for accountability, not drama. Subscribe. Comment your location. Mission window 12 hours. At 0900 hours, the convoy rolls out from a forward logistics lot carved into dry scrub and gravel. 4 vehicles in column formation, 3 transports and a support MRAP move past the last wire barrier and onto the main road heading toward the valley. The air shimmers above the asphalt. Heat already climbs past 100 degrees. The first vehicle clears the lot at 5 miles per hour before accelerating uphill into the glare. Engines hum against wind gusts that throw sand across the windshield. The sun sits high and white, cutting through haze, flattening all color from the terrain. Captain Dana Holt rides in the second vehicle, a Marine officer with joint clearance, sleeves rolled tight against her wrists. Her convoy includes both Marines and Army personnel, a mixed element tasked with recovering a liaison team stranded at a collapsed bridge site 3 miles west of the valley mouth. On paper, she answers to a major positioned 50 miles away. Orders move through radio relay, filtered by repeater drones and a digital feed prone to lag. Every instruction arrives a few seconds late. Signal integrity drops below half and stabilizes. Holt checks the laminated map sheet across her lap. A red grease pencil line traces their route through a narrow corridor surrounded by ridgelines. The map's edges curl from heat. Her notebook, clipped to the dashboard, records departure times, fuel totals, and personnel counts. She documents each checkpoint as they pass, even when the terrain changes so little it feels static. Routine documentation is its own discipline. The road winds through loose gravel, engine torque shifting up and down. Convoy spacing holds at 100 yards. Brake lights blink through waves of dust. Holt watches the lead driver's silhouette fade and reappear as gusts move sand down from the ridge. The horizon remains washed in white glare. No movement visible beyond the immediate track. Repeater drone cuts out again. The convoy pauses briefly on a shallow incline. The temperature inside the cabin rises. Radio chatter resumes. An Army lieutenant in the rear vehicle confirming that fuel is still above 80% and coolant levels nominal. Holt copies the update, logs the minute mark, and asks for confirmation of data sync from the drone tablet. The operator answers that the feed is intermittent, frames dropping every few seconds. She notes it and keeps them moving. Fuel status holds at 80%. The sound inside the cab is steady, the hum of engines blending with the push of hot wind against steel. Holt adjusts her headset, eyes on the valley rim. Her focus stays on timing. Every checkpoint matters if the recovery window closes before nightfall. The liaison team's last beacon, ping, came 6 hours earlier, near a half-built causeway on the valley's west wall. Their signal showed no movement after that. Command's assessment labeled the area cold. Holt acknowledges the report, but circles the grid square, in red ink anyway. Visibility over the ridge falls under 200 yards. The heat intensifies as the convoy crosses the open plateau. Armor plates on the MRAP shimmer, hot enough to sting through gloves. Dust collects in fine layers across the dashboard. The radio carrier wave buzzes at a higher pitch, interference from nearby terrain. Holt requests a data pull from higher command to verify drone imagery. The delay stretches, 20 seconds, then 30, before a response comes back compressed and glitching. No hostiles confirmed. Maintain route. She acknowledges receipt but doesn't mark it as verified. Repeater link latency increases to 32 seconds. She takes a long look through the side mirror. The third vehicle's headlights cut faintly through dust, distorted by thermal waves. Everyone inside the convoy works by checklist. Gunner hatches stay closed. Radios remain on local channel. Windows stay up. The procedure is tight. Still, she senses drift, not from the team, but from the guidance above them. Each update from command sounds less specific, more templated. Drone telemetry fluctuates between stable and blank. Holt asks for a thermal sweep from their onboard sensor drone. The feed stutters, showing fragments of terrain, rocks, heat plumes from their own engines, a streak of reflected glare from metal far ahead. She replays the fragment twice, then 3 times. The reflection repeats at the same angle. She flags the image, labels it potential anomaly, Ridge 3. The data packet sends up through relay, time-stamped and geo-tagged. She notes the time, 11:22 hours. Transmission delay now exceeds 45 seconds. The response arrives minutes later, not actionable. No further comment. The voice reading the message sounds detached, probably a staff sergeant passing along a standard evaluation from the major's office. Holt doesn't contest it. She adds the phrase to her log, exactly as received. Underlined once. Documentation, not argument. Engine temperatures rise 10 degrees above baseline. The convoy pushes forward into denser terrain. The road narrows between cut slopes. The ridgelines close in, shadowed under afternoon light. Static rises on the radio again. Holt rechecks position coordinates. Each entry she logs creates a traceable record time. Distance. Command. Response. Every fact documented to reconstruct decision flow later, if anyone demands explanation. Visibility decreases as dust thickens ahead of lead vehicle. By 1400 hours, the heat saturates everything. Drivers alternate wiping sweat from their faces and adjusting vents. Holt's voice remains steady over radio. Short, clear acknowledgments. The team trusts her calm more than the updates coming down from higher. They know she's logged every inconsistency, every delay. The system above them runs on assumptions. She runs on evidence. Repeater drone signal reestablishes briefly, then cuts again. She reviews the live map overlay on the flickering tablet. The valley path remains highlighted, the target grid blinking weakly in the corner. A narrow defile along the western ridge shows terrain distortion in the imaging. Holt enlarges the frame. The topography doesn't align with the last map revision. It could be a rendering artifact or something physical. She can't tell. She flags it again. Sends the data with coordinates and a request for confirmation. Command feed delay holds at 50 seconds. The reply arrives. Acknowledged. No deviation required. The line cuts out before she can respond. She writes it down, word for word, next to the original anomaly note. Around her, the light shifts. Shadows stretch longer across the ridges. Heat still radiates from the road surface, carrying dust into the air until the valley mouth disappears behind it. Signal-to-noise ratio degrades by 10%. Holt closes the logbook and looks through the windshield. The horizon shimmers, indistinct. Everything appears quiet, compliant, and exactly as the mission order predicted. That precision is the problem. Each feed, each report, shows too perfect a picture. Her sensor drone flickers again, one frame of distortion, gone before she can capture it. She radios it up one more time. Negative read, command responds, route remains green. She holds the mic halfway to her mouth, pauses, then lowers it. On record. The denial stands. Off record. The first fracture has already opened. By 1600 hours, thunderheads gather over the ridge. The air grows heavy and charged, a dull heat pressing against the vehicles as the first drops of rain strike the hoods. The convoy holds formation. 4 vehicles spaced 100 yards apart. Captain Dana Holt calls for a radio check across channels. Replies arrive with clipped acknowledgement. Static eats the tail end of each word. Comms bandwidth falls below 1/4. The terrain changes from gravel to soaked clay. Water begins cutting narrow streams through the roadbed. Mud climbs up the tires. The sky darkens until daylight feels like dusk. Holt rides in the second truck, eyes moving between windshield glare and the drone tablet on her lap. The signal shows a fragmentary image of the valley corridor ahead. It flickers, freezes, then returns with half the grid missing. She notes the dropout time in her log. Visibility tightens to 300 yards. The Major's voice comes through the command feed, distorted but formal. Captain Holt, maintain position until air recon resumes. The sentence repeats twice as if cued by an automated relay. Holt copies the instruction, confirms receipt, and glances toward Lieutenant Marks in the lead vehicle. He raises a thumb from the driver's window, uncertain if he heard the same. She lifts her headset mic. Sir, confirm. We're to hold short of the ridge until further tasking static answers first. Then a partial phrase, affirmative. Phase line, bravo. Stand by. Fuel check reports 60% remaining. Rain thickens into steady sheets. Wipers push water aside in quick, rhythmic arcs. The radio crackles again. Background chatter from higher headquarters overlapping with local channel. Holt writes the time, 1630 hours, on her clipboard. Ink smudges as droplets find the paper. The wind picks up, carrying a low, constant hum through the canyon that blends with idling engines. The sound feels like everything vibrating in place, waiting. Thunder rolls over the ridge, masking engine noise. The third truck reports partial traction loss along the slope. Holt acknowledges and orders reduced throttle, maintaining spacing. Lieutenant Marks calls back that the drone link has collapsed. Holt reboots her tablet, watching the display stall on a frozen frame of the valley floor. A faint smear of heat register sits at the lower corner. It might be vehicle exhaust or a glitch. She saves the image, logs the coordinates, and transmits the packet. Response from command comes delayed. Short acknowledged. Hold current. Second vehicle confirms partial traction loss. Holt repositions her mic closer to her mouth, tightening the strap on her helmet. Rain hits harder now, each drop pinging against metal. The convoy creeps forward 10 yards at a time, wheels grinding through shallow channels of brown water. The lead vehicle halts at a bend where the road narrows between 2 cliff faces. Marks steps out briefly, signals back that the turn is passable. Holt's voice stays calm as she relays the check. Maintain formation. Keep spacing 100 yards. Proceed on my mark. The column moves again, one truck after another into the choke point. Signal frame lag increases to 40 seconds. Inside the cab, the air smells of damp wiring and hot metal. Holt wipes her sleeve across the window. The tablet feed comes alive for a second. 2 blips appear on the thermal overlay beyond the bridge site. They move slightly, then vanish. She captures the frame and sends it to command with a note: possible personnel at grid 6-8. The rain interferes again. Message status pending. Visibility drops under 200 yards. Lightning forks above the ridge. A second later, thunder shakes the entire valley. The sound merges with a metallic rattle as the trucks idle through deeper mud. Holt hears the brief, sharp tone of an incoming transmission, the major's voice, clipped and fatigued. Negative advance. Pull back to phase line Bravo. She repeats the order for record, then asks for clarification. Sir, liaison team still unaccounted for. Do you confirm mission abort? The answer arrives 15 seconds later. Carried on static. Mission suspended pending recon verification. Fuel check reports 58% remaining. The convoy idles under the storm, engines barely audible under the rain. Holt watches the water roll down her windshield in vertical streaks. 2 minutes pass before Mark's radios from the lead vehicle HQ says, "Hold. We're low visibility. No confirmation." She copies the statement, notes the timestamp, then replays the earlier drone feed. Those 2 blips remain frozen on screen, too defined to be noise. She radios again. Command, request recon verification on prior grid. Possible friendly presence? No reply. Drone relay unresponsive for 45 seconds. A sudden glare flashes through the rain, brief, rhythmic, one pulse, then another. Holt leans forward, narrowing her eyes. The pattern repeats. It's reflected from the valley mouth, mirrored on wet rock. 3 flashes in quick succession, then pause. Improvised signaling. Deliberate and human. She writes it down and keys the mic. Command. We have potential Morse signal. Unknown sender. Request permission to advance 100 yards for verification. Response. Denied. Maintain current position. Repeater feed desyncs again. She sets her clipboard aside and unhooks the mic. Lieutenant Marks. She calls over short channel. We may have visual from the liaison element. Prepare to move on my mark. Marks answers after a beat, voice uneasy. Ma'am. HQ said stand down. Holt's tone stays even. Acknowledged. I'm documenting command denial. Be ready to move slow. She writes that sentence exactly as she said it. The rain blurs the ink. Command channel clarity drops to minimal. At 17:30 hours, the storm fully closes in. The valley becomes gray. Every outline soft and unreliable. Thunder rolls at irregular intervals, masking any distant sound. The lead truck reports intermittent mirror flashes continuing at 300-yard distance. Holt confirms visual. She calls for reduced engine noise and blackout posture. The convoy lights fade to near darkness. Faint brake glow visible through haze. Engines idle low, mechanical and patient. Visibility holds at 150 yards. Command. This is Holt. We have unverified friendly signal forward. I am maintaining defensive posture. Silence answers. Then another fragment. Words broken apart by static. Await air support. Retasked asset. Hold position. The rest dissolves into noise. Holt writes it all down. Her handwriting grows small and cramped on wet paper. She keeps her mic open just long enough to add, confirm retasking details. No one responds. Drone feed signal unrecoverable. The rear vehicle reports a mechanical fault. Water in the alternator. Holt directs the second driver to offset and cover rear security. She logs the change and glances back at her watch. 17:50 hours. The storm has no break in sight. Every decision now burns time and fuel. She checks the gauge 55%. Her notebook page ripples under rain. Each entry blurs at the edges. Fuel drops to 55% remaining. Lieutenant Marks radios again, ma'am. Command just pinged. They say suspend until air clears. That could be hours. Holt's reply is short. Acknowledged. Documenting. She turns to her driver, voice low. We stay tight. No unnecessary transmissions. The driver nods, adjusting the throttle. Engines idle steady. Lightning flashes behind the ridge. For 1 second, the valley illuminates in full. Holt glimpses the silhouette of the collapsed bridge ahead, its steel frame twisted, cab of a stranded truck half buried in mud. She keys her mic. Confirmed visual on objective. Personnel movement possible near vehicle. The signal carries her words, then fragments again into empty static. Comms channel dropout extends to 1 minute. She looks toward the ridge, rain running down her visor. We can't wait for air, she mutters, but only to the recorder pinned to her chest rig. She presses the log button. 17:58 hours. Command confirmation pending. Field conditions unstable. The wind picks up, throwing sheets of rain sideways across the convoy. Thunder peaks over the valley, echoing against cliff walls. The mirror flashes return, closer now, reflecting against wet rock and mud. Morse intervals again. 3 short, 1 long. Holt recognizes the pattern distress. She keys her mic. All vehicles. Advance on my mark. Slow and silent. 100 yards spacing. Rear security confirms ready posture. Holt sets the clipboard between her knees, turns the mic off local, and switches to command net. Major. This is Holt. Field confirmation of stranded team in distress signal. Request permission to advance 200 yards for recovery. There's a pause. Only background. Static. The rain intensifies until every surface vibrates under impact. Then the reply. Negative. Repeat. Negative. Maintain current. Holt writes it down. The ink bleeding across the page. Visibility compresses to 100 yards. Copy, she says quietly. Log denial. She looks toward Marks's vehicle. Through rain-smeared glass, she sees his head turn, waiting for her signal. She lifts her hand once, not high enough for anyone beyond him to see. The driver shifts into gear. The convoy starts forward. Engines humming low, cutting through mud and pooled water. The valley walls rise closer on both sides. Brake lights fade behind dust and rain. Fuel window narrows to 50%. By 1845 hours, daylight collapses into shadow. Rain falls in solid sheets. The storm's low rumble mixes with the engine's mechanical growl. Visibility is barely 50 yards. Holt's headset crackles. No words, just fragments of interference. Then a sharp echo cracks across the valley. She freezes, eyes on the ridge. Another echo follows, metallic and percussive, indistinguishable from thunder. Contact, 1845 hours. Gunfire and thunder merge into one continuous roar. Comm static spikes so loud it swallows every voice. Holt grips the radio, trying to isolate a channel. Marks. Report. The transmission cuts mid-syllable. She looks through the windshield, flashes of light. Unclear, through rain. Strobing, from the ridgeline above. She presses the recorder again. Voice level. 1845 hours. Contact initiated. Convoy in motion. Documentation live. Thunder rolls through the canyon, masking everything else. The road ahead flickers white under lightning, showing mud churned by incoming rounds. Holt braces one hand against the dash. Keep forward momentum, she says evenly. Stay in formation. The driver's knuckles tighten on the wheel. The next bolt of lightning reveals red tracers arching from high ground to the valley floor. Convoy integrity holding under fire. Rain drums against metal. Engine noise deepens. Holt's voice remains steady over the radio. Maintain spacing, 100 yards. We'll reassess outside choke point. Her words are factual, unshaken, already part of the record. Static saturates all open channels. The last clean second holds in suspension, the convoy still moving, order intact, the ridge still flashing with heat and rain. Holt's hand rests on the radio switch. No one speaks. The feed clicks once, half a transmission forming before the noise overtakes it. Control ends there. By 1850 hours, the storm deepens. Rain hits the hulls like static, drumming over the roar of engines half buried in mud. The convoy holds position 200 yards short of open ground. Headlights stay blacked out, only the faint green of instruments reflecting off steel. Captain Dana Holt's voice cuts through the noise, measured, direct, and on record. Signal feed restores to 60% stability. The valley is a corridor of thunder and smoke. Command's last transmission ended 30 minutes ago. Holt calls again through the relay net. No reply. Lieutenant Marks leans from the lead truck, motioning for guidance. She signals him to maintain spacing, then keys her mic. This is Captain Holt. Convoy, actual. Command feed, non-responsive. Assuming field control, understanding directive. The recorder light glows red as she speaks, a timestamp burning through rain streaks on the glass. Rainfall increases, reducing line of sight range. The ridge still flashes with intermittent gunfire, but each volley lands wide now. The enemy fire pattern has drifted, evidence they're losing track of convoy movement. Holt marks the change on her log sheet, presses the page flat against wet metal, and caps her pen. The paper softens, but holds. She orders the first vehicle to angle 20 degrees left, using its frame as cover for the wounded team loaded in the rear. Marks acknowledges, repeating her command, back word for word. Convoy spacing corrected to 150 yards. She lifts the strobe light, its pulse faint in the rain, and secures it atop the MRAP. The drone feed on her tablet reactivates, grainy but readable. She overlays coordinates, matching the ridgeline pattern with her earlier flagged image. The geometry's identical, the same defilade that higher headquarters dismissed. Holt activates the backup uplink and opens a live voice channel. This is Holt. Be advised. Command feed image outdated by 8 hours. Current position verified, with live thermal return. Hostile alignment confirmed along Ridge 3. Air asset fuel clock reads 7 minutes. Static breaks. Then the pilot's voice. Copy. Holt. We have limited flight time. Need positive ID before approach. Holt's eyes stay on the flickering tablet. 2 cold signatures show friendly, crouched near the stranded truck. She answers. Confirmed friendly. Green flare, mark on contact. She turns to her driver. Flare cap off. Launch on my count. The flare arcs upward, burning bright through smoke before vanishing in rain. The pilot calls visual confirmation. Green mark acquired. Say, conditions for landing. Thunder overrun masks movement on the ridge. Negative landing. Holt replies. Ground unstable. You'll hover at 20 feet for extraction. She glances to Marks. Get smoke out. Both flanks. Now. White plumes hiss through rain, expanding under rotor wash. Holt toggles her recorder. 1857 hours. Command verification absent. Field control in effect under emergency authority. Extraction commencing. She watches the bird descend, its blades hammering air into mud-laden spray. Rotor wash merges with the rain and mechanical hum. The pilot calls fuel remaining at 5 minutes. Holt raises her voice just enough to cut through the downpour. Understood. Maintain hover. We'll load from rear vehicle first. The gunner secures a wounded Marine onto the stretcher. Holt moves methodically, ensuring documentation before each lift. She reads back times into the recorder. First transfer complete. Second inbound. The bird dips, skids slightly under wind, then steadies. Marks covers the movement with controlled bursts into the ridge wall. Signal latency drops to 10 seconds. Through her headset, static fades long enough for the pilot to confirm. Last passenger secured. Bird weight balanced. Ready for outbound. Holt nods, though he can't see it. Copy. Clear to egress. Report fuel on exit. The chopper lifts. water spiraling off its blades in horizontal sheets. She watches it bank west, disappearing into storm cloud and distance. Her mic clicks once. Convoy secure. Commence withdrawal pattern alpha. Rain intensity holds constant. Marks hesitates. Ma'am. Command still silent. We moving without clearance. Holt's reply is steady. Command had its window. We have ours. Execute withdrawal. Log everything. She pulls her pen across the wet notepad, writing as she speaks. 1859 hours. Recovery complete. Command silence continues. Evidence recording maintained. The field recorder's light blinks green, confirming data capture. Visibility measured under 100 yards. The convoy pivots, each truck turning nose downslope. Mud grips tires, engines grinding slow but controlled. Holt monitors spacing through the rear camera feed, adjusting headings by degrees. Marks, maintain 150 yards, keep blackout discipline. Her tone remains procedural, as if she's reading from a checklist. Marks answers with one word, solid. The convoy creeps forward into rain that feels heavier by the minute. Drone connection improves to 70%. The feed stabilizes enough to display both ridge and valley floor. Holt overlays timestamps again, contrasting live thermal with the archived command image. The differences are clear. 8-hour discrepancy, altered terrain, active heat zones. She records commentary for file. Discrepancy confirmed. Feed validation complete. Recommend immediate review by operations audit. She seals the note in her waterproof log pouch and wipes rain from her visor. Ground traction improves marginally. The wind shifts, pushing the storm east. Holt hears the faint echo of the departing helicopter fading between thunder rolls. One of the Marines in the rear truck radios up. Captain, wounded stable. Perimeter clear. She replies, copy. Maintain interval. We're 200 yards from open ground. Her watch reads 1900 hours. She adds it to her notes, every digit preserved. The convoy's headlights cut thin cones through mist, tracing the incline out of the valley. Air channel silent since extraction. Holt calls once more to higher command. This is Holt. Convoy. Actual. Extraction successful. Awaiting further tasking. Nothing answers. She doesn't repeat it. Instead, she taps her pen 3 times on the clipboard, her habit before closing an entry. The motion steadies her breathing. Each decision, each order, has been documented in line. There will be no gaps when the report reaches audit. Rainfall decreases to moderate. Marks. Confirm formation status. He responds. All vehicles accounted for. Captain. We're clear of engagement zone. She acknowledges, toggling her mic. Understood. Maintain 200-yard spacing. Reduce speed. We'll regroup at the next ridge saddle. Her voice carries. Over static, with mechanical certainty. She checks the recorder once more. Battery indicator at full. Data log scrolling clean. Fuel levels stabilize at 48%. The ridge to their rear fades under the shifting weather. Holt looks back once, eyes scanning the slope now quiet except for runoff and wind. No movement, no heat signatures. The field recorder light still pulses, red for record, green for confirmed transmission. She speaks into it without inflection. 1905 hours. Immediate threat contained. Extraction concluded under field authority. Awaiting command verification. Signal feed restores to 90% stability. Marks's voice returns, softer through the net. Captain, birds clear. No follow-on contact. Permission to power down weapons. Holt answers. Granted. Safe weapons. Maintain watch rotation. She sits back against the seat, hands still gloved, pen still poised over the notebook. Every motion measured. Nothing left to assumption. The strobe on the MRAP roof still flashes through thinning rain, a constant, steady pulse marking their position to whoever finally checks the record. Reversal. Live feed verified. She keys her final transmission into the recorder. Mission complete. Command feed error documented. All personnel recovered. Evidence secured for review. The last sound before silence is the mechanical blend of rain, rotor echo, and engine hum. Steady, procedural, and controlled. Then the log tone beeps once to confirm entry. Holt exhales once, brief and even, convoy secure, documentation continuous. Her words land as fact, not relief. The record stands. After action, verified. Just after 0600 hours, dawn breaks over wet ground. The rain has stopped, leaving thin mist across the valley floor. The air is cold enough to fog every breath. Boots press into soft mud where tire tracks have filled with shallow water. The convoy sits quiet. Engines off. Bodies moving slow but steady through cleanup. Captain Dana Holt stands beside the lead truck, clipboard pressed flat against her chest, paper sticking to its cover. Rotor noise fades to silence. Above the ridgeline, the medevac bird disappears into fog. The sound fades until only wind moves between vehicles. Holt records one last entry into her log, extraction complete, command acknowledgement pending. Her handwriting is small, deliberate, identical to every prior line. The ink bleeds in places, but nothing unreadable. She slips the log sheet into a plastic sleeve, seals it, and hands it to the comm sergeant for transfer. Her written record transfers to command archive. Headquarters has confirmed the intel feed error that set the valley in motion. The data source was misaligned, time-stamped 8 hours prior to the mission. The formal reprimand against Holt remains active while review continues. She accepts the notation without comment. Authority remains intact. Responsibility now distributed among all ranks who touched the decision chain. The investigation will decide what constitutes lawful risk, but her report already shows who made which call, in what order, and why. Visibility improves beyond 500 yards. Sunlight glints off soaked metal. Trucks gleam silver under the new light, empty but intact. The sound of wind moving through antennas replaces the engine's hum. Holt watches the ridge fade into brightness. She doesn't speak. She simply writes the final line of the operation: personnel accounted for. Evidence secured. Mission closed. Distant rotor echoes fade into wind. Discipline holds. Duty continues. Lawful record-keeping, the one act that protects both lives and integrity, remains her command. 0630 hours. The valley lies silent under first light. Wind moves through empty tracks where the convoy stood hours before. Dust drifts against a lone vehicle, its hood holding a helmet and clipboard, evidence of what was decided, and what could have failed. The engines are gone. Only the record remains. Wind speed increases across the valley floor. Lawful orders define control, but no system predicts every condition. In this operation, authority issued one instruction, field judgment required another. Both held risk. Both stayed within code. The question is, which one preserves duty when seconds decide lives? Sunlight breaks along the ridge at 500 yards. The hum of distant comm equipment fades, replaced by a low electronic ping tone marking transmission closure. The choice now belongs to the viewer. Your call, obey or act. Comment below. One decision. Two lawful paths. Choose. Rotor noise fades into open air. The mission closes under full accountability. Convoy silhouettes dissolve into darkness across the forward lot. Overhead wind subsides. Engines cool under steel. Every record, every order, and every response remains documented through U.S. military review. The file stands complete within lawful command authority, verified and stored for audit. Nothing dramatized, nothing omitted. The final file logs complete at 0300 hours. A map grid rotates slowly across the display, coordinates dimming to black. The digital stamp reads, unclassified after review. The tone stays steady. Procedure followed. Evidence preserved. The purpose of these records remains unchanged to show how pressure meets duty and how verification replaces noise. Next blackout runway, coming up. If you value operational truth and documented integrity, like and subscribe. The next mission is already waiting, built on the same record keeping that keeps every story accountable.